when I have a beard on my face, it reminds me that my role isn't tied into what I wear, it's what's inside of my heart. I don't know why it reminds me of that, but when I see my bearded face, it just reminds me of that. It's some deep-rooted thing that's been embedded in our psyche as men, that to be manly is great, not required. But for some of us, we're like, okay, I'm rugged. I can support my family. I work hard. I strive to be better for me and for them. And for me, this also means self-sacrifice.
You are listening to The Glorious Beard, where we talk about beards, beard culture, and the people behind them. It's summertime, and the heat is on, and with that comes the fact that many of us have to take just a little bit of extra care with our beards. So, it's only fitting that our guest today is Jacob Bain. The founder of the Bain Blends Beard Care Company, Jacob has led a life that's seen fire, ice, military service, and ultimately finding himself in the unexpected place of creating beard care products that not only style, but meet the needs of his wife, family, and friends. But before all that, let's begin with this drastic heat. If you've got a beard, well, you know. Hot weather can turn your facial mane into a sweaty and tangled hot mess, but there are ways to handle it. Regular washing and trimming can help, and the right products will keep things manageable. But what else can be done to battle the heat and still stay styled up?
Beards are a fascinating device known to men with seemingly mystical properties, swooning women across the planet and capturing authoritative power, all while looking good doing it. But there's more to a beard than hair meets the face. Have you ever thought about what happens when beards are exposed to the sun's heat? Or rather, the complex science of beards in heat? Beards and the sun's rays have an interesting relationship, one weirder than you would think. And it turns out, beards aren't just fun ways to style hair on your face.
So UV rays are what we're really concerned with when it comes to the sun. They do damage your beard hairs. What they do is they attack that outside or outer protective layer that keeps your hair healthy, keeps everything intact, and that's not good.
For starters, beards can work as a natural sunblock. This works because the beard hair acts as shade for your skin against the sun's UV rays. With less sun coming in, the chance of sunburn lessens. However, it's not a perfect substitution because some beards are patchy or have small gaps where the sun can still peek in. So, it's a good idea to keep that beard oil handy.
So good news is, most of the carrier oils that we are using on our beard have natural UV protection, especially ones like raspberry seed or raspberry, however you want to pronounce it. That is proven to probably be the best with up to 50 SPF protection. Now that is legit. Most of them are around the 8 to 10 range with stuff that we see, but it's still something. It is protecting those hairs. I'm not telling you to go put these oils on your skin. That is not it at all. I'm just simply talking about protecting your hairs.
The color of your beard also plays a role. Depending on your hair color, those rays can either scatter or be absorbed, as darker hair tends to absorb the sun, while lighter hair scatters or reflects those rays back.
Common signs would be just like any other beard damage when it would come with breakage, when you'd have brittle hair, but most uniquely and commonly when it comes to sun damage is a discoloration or changing of the color with your hairs.
Your beard doesn't only benefit the bottom half of your face though. The heat also helps keep your skin temperature to stay even and regulated. That same heat can become trapped and act as an insulator, keeping your face warm. Now, this is where the type of hair you have matters. For men with thick, curly beards, heat is more easily trapped because of tighter pockets and less airflow. But men with more straight hair, air flows easily, and that means a lesser chance of heat being stored.
There's no science behind this right now. There's no studies behind it. We don't even really have hair care products that advertise a certain level of SPF protection. One of the reasons why is it does not protect in the same way your skin does.
Beards have a fascinating duality of being able to heat and cool your face at the same time. Depending on what the weather is like, your beard will adapt, keeping you warm in the cold and cool in the sweltering heat. So, now you know. It's not a mythical mystery, it's science.
Here's where the predicament comes in. Our best source of vitamin D is from the sun. And vitamin D is really important for your hairs. When we have vitamin D deficiency or lack of vitamin D, it is directly linked to hair loss. Now, when you have a good amount of vitamin D, it makes the hairs stronger and is shown to be able to produce new hairs. So, it can hurt your hair, but it is also needed.
Not to be the bearder of bad news, but there's also some drawbacks of the relationship between your beard and the sun. According to physiologist Mikhail Kabanak, there is a rare chance that having a beard can overheat your brain. But before you grab the razor and throw away your beard dreams, hear me out. There is a solution. He hypothesizes that balding is a way to offset this, because less hair on your head allows for more ventilation, or cooling.
Now, there are certain types of beards that are more compromised and are more prone to getting damage from the sun than others. The two main ones would be gray beards and then red, aka ginger beards. I know some of you are sensitive about the term ginger, but red or rustic beards, we can call them. Those beards are often missing that outer layer of protection, that like shell on the outside of the hair fibers and proteins. And as such, that sun damage is going to happen a lot easier, a lot quicker, and it's going to be far more damaging as compared to someone that has that outer layer of protection.
Other drawbacks include reduced sweat efficiency. As I said, beards can trap heat, and heat can cause you to sweat. This sweat can cause you to feel uncomfortably sweaty or sticky. But, lucky for you, this isn't the Stone Ages. Sweat plus trapped heat can encourage skin issues and store dirt, germs, and other things you probably don't want. However, practicing good hygiene can take care of this problem. After all, a beard is more than just an accessory. It's a biological mechanism made to protect you. Now that you know all about the good and bad about the relationship your beard has with the sun's heat, you can use this information to protect yourself and your glorious beard.
You are listening to the Glorious Beard Podcast. You can find all things glorious by visiting our link tree in the description. And also, be sure to leave us a voicemail and tell us how you're battling the summer heat by visiting our SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/gloriousbeardvoicemail. What immediately comes to mind when you think about working as part of a team? While there could be a number of answers to that question, many people think of the sport that they played growing up, or maybe their favorite superheroes working together to get the bad guy. But teams commonly appear in our everyday lives, and in ways that we may usually never think about. Putting together a dinner with friends requires planning and communication. Making the decision to get married is signing on to a lifelong team. Even something as simple as abiding by traffic rules is a part of a bigger team effort in order to keep the roads safe for everyone who's traveling. Working as a team is an inevitable and foundational part of life, and for one very simple reason. There's power in numbers, and it often increases efficiency while lowering the workload for everyone involved. People can accomplish so much more working as a team rather than going at it solo, and that's something that today's guest, Jacob Bain, knows a lot about. A Marine Corps veteran, a father, entrepreneur, and lifelong hockey player and enthusiast, today he's going to tell us about a life well lived. One that highlights his love for sports, military service, and the inspiration for his own beard care products. And through every milestone and accomplishment of his life, he never forgets the importance of his role as a team member in every facet of his existence.
Hockey was very interesting growing up. I mean, my dad was a Marine, Vietnam, had prospects of becoming an officer, and decided that he wanted to not move around a lot. So, fast forward to 1980, he had become a hot commodity doing construction projects all around the nation. He had, at age 16 or 17, had worked as a draftsman here over in St. Pete, Clearwater, Florida, and had actually come up with the diagram that everybody uses today for the baseball diamonds. So you'd have a baseball diamond for a bigger league that would set next to a smaller little league diamond. He actually is the one who drew that. That was my dad's idea. Um, but he was a kid, and the guy that he worked for actually took that and sold the idea, which happens, I guess. So always had a penchant for math. So he was really good at drawing plans and reading plans, and was doing construction projects just a few years after getting out of the military. And we moved around a lot because of that. He'd be on a project for maybe 6 months, 9 months to a year, and we would move. And that was the reason why he got out of the military, was he didn't want to move around every 4 years. Instead, he moved around every year, if not more.
Jacob Bain may have had to deal with the hassle of moving frequently as he grew up, but there was a silver lining. Leaving West Virginia would inevitably provide better opportunities to play ice hockey, and he recounts hockey-related memories from when he was as young as 2.5.
So we wound up in Saginaw, Michigan when I was 2.5, and saw my first hockey game, the Saginaw Gears, and absolutely fell in love with the game. And like so many young guys growing up, you start off with socks and a hardwood floor and a ball and a tiny stick, and that's what I did. At 3, I started skating, and we didn't wind up in any spectacular hockey places within a few years of my starting to play, but it was just enough rec league and ice rinks for everywhere we went, because my dad chose projects based off of there was hockey available.
Hockey culture is something that may be hard to understand if you've never been in the locker room. The smells, the chatter, the brotherhood that you develop. And unlike other sports, there's just something that's unique about the environment of the hockey locker room. Putting on the sweater and then working together in one of the fastest and perhaps most physically demanding activities that you can do for recreation. But for those who get hooked on early, it can lead to a lifelong love, one that Jacob Bain pursued no matter where he was.
We wound up in 1987, 88, we wound up in Massachusetts. And as an 8-year-old, we ended up playing 70, 80 games with, 1 or 2 practices every other week or so. But we played a ridiculous amount of games. We were in C and went all the way up to AAA might by that time. And then, 1989, we moved back to Florida. So I played at the ice rink in Clearwater. It was called Sunblades. It's now called Clearwater Ice Arena. I played there when there was probably 30 to 40 kids in the entire state that played.
As time went on, he would receive more and more support and encouragement to play ice hockey from his parents and his teammates. The emergence of an NHL expansion team, known as the Tampa Bay Lightning in 1992, would bring on even bigger and better opportunities to be involved in the sport that he loved.
My mom was the treasurer of the organization, and around 1992, the Lightning got their franchise. And immediately, Carrie Esposito, Phil Esposito's daughter, started helping us reorganize as the Florida Youth Hockey League. So Florida at the time probably had maybe 200 to 250 kids around 1991, 1992 that played hockey. And within the first few years, the Lightning getting their franchise, and the Panthers, the Dirty Panthers, that horrible team down in South Florida, got their franchise. We've gone up to, tens of thousands of kids in the state of Florida that play. You've had, I think, between 10 and 15 guys that have made the NHL. All the Hughes brothers are from Florida. Hockey has just absolutely accelerated throughout these years. 1996, it was on my first year of playing midgets. Please don't be offended by that term. That's what they called it. And my team was on the first team to win the Southern Regional tournament in Alabama called Silver Sticks. We were the first Florida team to go up to Sarnia, Ontario for the Nationals. Got killed. Our team was totally different by the time we got there. We had 3 of our best players ended up leaving the team for whatever reason. But there was like so many different layers that were added to the state of Florida hockey.
It's a beautiful thing for a team to come together and find success, despite stacking odds and everything that's against them. There's so much to learn when working on a team, and losing can be one of those skills. Learning how to lose, but then to pick yourself back up and try again, is a skill that some adults are still trying to figure out, even until the day that they leave this earth. And, interestingly enough, the skills that Jacob learned from playing hockey would help him to navigate the decisions that were waiting for him after high school.
Growing up, they used to call me Clark because I played a lot like Wendell Clark did. The only problem is I wasn't mean. And that was something my dad always told me, you need to go out there and be mean. I was not a mean guy. I didn't have an edge to my game. There was a couple times a year, another team would upset me, and I was unstoppable on the ice just because I would get that edge. And that was really a big difference between me and a lot of other guys that do become professional hockey players, NHL or otherwise. They have that edge. They have the ability to turn it on and turn it off. I did not have that. I had a lot of talent. I was quick. I had a great shot. I was able to pass. I had really good vision on the ice, but I just didn't have that. I didn't have that. A couple of years after my last year of hockey in 1998-99, like, we had juniors. We had kids that were starting to get opportunity, that were getting Division I scholarships, that, had the potential of getting drafted, into the NHL. And like, just a great takeoff. I think I missed it by a few years, opportunity wise. I had talent. I was a captain of a few of my travel teams. I had a lot of respect around the league. A lot of other teams knew me. They had, they knew I was a dangerous player with probably a harder slap shot than some pros at the time. I played with a 115 professional flex stick at the time. And when most of my peers were, using like a 98, 97 flex, I was the only kid that could do that. But I would shoot hundreds of pucks a day out in at my garage. And there was talent, but I didn't have the drive like a lot of kids that grow up north have. There was no opportunity down here. There wasn't the coaching available to really get us to get to that next level, but it's available now. It's incredible. I mean, it really is incredible.
Jacob Bain put everything that he had into being part of a hockey team throughout his life, and the sport provided him with a sense of discipline, community, and belonging during some of his most formative years. But discipline comes in many forms in our lives, and Jacob Bain was about to encounter a brand new version of discipline that took him off the ice and onto the battlefield. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
So here at The Glorious Beard, we're partnering with Bud Mosh Beards to offer you 15% off your purchase with promo code GLORIOUSPOD at checkout. That's 15% off your entire purchase with promo code GLORIOUSPOD at checkout. Simply find us on Instagram, give us a follow, and check the affiliate link in the bio. Bud Mosh Beards. Unleash your inner Bud Mosh.
Thanks for listening to the Glorious Beard Podcast. Today is all about beard care, and what better way to care for your beard than using a really great product? But did you know that even though beard care has been in focus for the last few years, it's actually not a recent thing?
Have you ever been giving your beard a much-needed bit of beard moisturizer or oil and thought to yourself, I wonder who was the first to do this. I wonder who saw a bucket of animal fat or a hunk of beeswax and thought, I'm gonna put that in my beard. It just feels right. Well, we've been wondering the same thing, and the answer is more complex than you might think. Join us as we take a look at the history of beard pomades. It's hard to know exactly when beard pomades were invented or who invented them. After all, no matter where you go, you're probably going to see a beard. And beard care is likely just as ancient as beards are. However, the first evidence we see of beard products comes from the ancient Near East and Asia. Although they lived so long ago, men of antiquity were no less resourceful and took just as much pride in their beards. Ancient Egyptians were most often beardless, particularly in later kingdoms. The baking heat and biting parasites of their homeland often made it impractical to maintain facial hair, so they would frequently forgo it. However, the beard had long been cherished as a sign of wisdom, status, and authority, and its significance could not be ignored. It was symbolism far older than even the Egyptians. As a result, the elite, most infamously the pharaohs, would either grow beards or wear fake ones. In order to care for real beards, Egyptian men would often use beeswax to moisturize and style their facial hair. They also used henna to dye them many different colors. Paints a very different picture than Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, doesn't it?
Come on, Evie, faster.
Patience is a virtue.
Not right now, it isn't.
On the flip side, ancient Mesopotamians did not share the Egyptians' comfort over tradition mentality. For them, it seems like patience really was a virtue, considering the lengths they went to care for their beards. Despite living in a similarly scorching place, modern-day Iraq, Mesopotamian men made sure to maintain long, glorious, and real facial hair. To do this, they often made beard pomades out of animal fats or natural oils. Sesame oil was a popular choice for keeping beards healthy, shiny, and soft. These products, combined with their wide assortment of tongs and curling irons, made for some fabulously intricate styles, which you can still see in wall reliefs and statues today. The incredibly wealthy were even said to incorporate braids of gold into their beards as an extra touch of bouginess.
Where's Bubbles?
She's probably upstairs combing her hair so she'll be the prettiest girl at the party. I'm gonna be the prettiest girl at the party.
Interestingly, while products like sesame oil have been used for aesthetic purposes for thousands of years, it's possible that they originated as medicine. Evidence suggests that sesame oil came to Mesopotamia from India, and more specifically, from the ancient medical practice of Ayurveda. The evidence also suggests that Ayurvedic medicine has been practiced in India for over 5,000 years and represents a vast knowledge of natural ingredients and their potential uses. Among these natural ingredients are coconut and sesame oil that would continue to be used by innumerable men for their beard care in the following millennia. In the classical period, Greeks certainly needed a wide array of moisturizers to care for their cherished beards. While early Greek societies like the Minoans mostly went clean-shaven, by the time Homer was around, the beard had become just as important to the Greeks as it was to their many Near Eastern neighbors. Just like their predecessors and contemporaries, the Greeks considered the beard a crucial sign of virility and strength. They used a variety of olive oil-based balms to improve beard health and shine. The Romans, by contrast, did not place as much importance on beards as the Greek heroes and philosophers that they so idolized. While Jupiter's effigy would have sported a long curly beard at his temple on Capitoline Hill, the Roman everyman milling about below would have probably been clean-shaven. Although, there were always exceptions. Emperor Hadrian, of temple destruction fame, was the first in his line to sport a long and lustrous beard for the duration of his reign. It's thought that he did this in order to emulate the Greeks, who he greatly admired. He and his fellow Greek fanboys would have likely used a fancier or more varied version of the olive oil balms. The wealthy Roman had access to a wide range of tallow and plant-based concoctions to keep their beards in perfect condition. It's a funny image. Maximus Decimus Meritus, rubbing a bit of olive oil in his beard before causing havoc in the arena.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
With the fall of Rome came a drastic change in the nature of trade. People no longer had access to such a wide array of herbs and oils, and often went back to using what was around. For example, your favorite pillaging beardies, the Vikings. They used a combination of natural oils for health and possibly even lye to lighten the color. They also used combs made of bone or wood, and even rudimentary scissors to keep their beards nice and neat. The Vikings' European contemporaries, and oftentimes their victims, would use beeswax and animal fats to style and moisturize. Sometimes they used castor oil or sesame oil, like their Near Eastern predecessors. Whatever they preferred, the beard's significance during this time seems to have made a similar comeback. The chivalrous knights and mad kings of the era found their beards to bear far more significance than the Romans did. Meanwhile, in China and Japan, the camellia blossom was regularly distilled into oil and used as a natural conditioner and moisturizer. There was special emphasis put on hair cleanliness in China. In fact, it was so important that during the Han Dynasty, there was a hair washing day observed by government officials. These mini vacations would happen every 5th day and would serve as an opportunity for officials to go see their families. However, it was also quite literally dedicated to carefully washing, moisturizing, and combing hair, facial or otherwise. Beards remained significant from the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance. Globalization brought new ingredients like cocoa and shea butter into the mix. But it's with the 19th century, specifically the Victorian era in England, that we see a boom in the mass production of new beard products. It's thought that the Crimean War was partly responsible for popularizing beards to such a great degree in England. Soldiers would grow them out for warmth while they were fighting, and it helped to spark a trend once they returned home. As a result, products like petroleum jelly styling creams became all the rage. Rowland's Macassar oil became one of the first mass-produced beard products in the 1830s, and it was so widespread that it necessitated the invention of the anti-macassar, a cloth that was placed over the backs of fancy chairs to protect them from oil stains. Who knew that there was a kind of predecessor to the 1950s greaser in Victorian gentlemen? Although the shape and significance of beards has changed drastically over time and across cultures, it's fascinating to find consistency among the products people have used to keep them healthy. Oils, whether derived from olives or camellia blossoms, have maintained a steady presence in the lives of beardies since antiquity. Likewise, beeswax and animal products are still used in beard care products today. While we don't usually dye beards with henna, or have to throw a rag over our lazy boy to keep it from being stained, there's still an undeniable connection between you and your ancient predecessors right there in your bathroom cabinet, if you know where to look.
Welcome back to The Glorious Beard. After a young life of changing towns, changing locker rooms, and changing friends, Jacob Bain was now off to the Marine Corps. Compared to the high physical demand of hockey, the military may seem like a natural next step for a young and physically fit high school graduate, especially one that has family that have a military history. But it turns out the same discipline and camaraderie that was cultivated in the hockey locker room didn't translate very well into the military environment.
My hockey life actually made the Marine Corps more difficult because when I started running, my body was not set up for running. My legs, I would pronate really bad. So running was extremely difficult at first. And, getting to boot camp, if you're a little bit overweight, they put you on, the immediate thing they do is they put you on half rations. So I only needed to lose like 8 pounds going to boot camp, and I would have hit my goal weight. But it took me 9 weeks to lose that weight. But in the meantime, my left leg deteriorated so bad that I had 7 stress fractures on my leg. And if I had not met my goal weight at week 9, mind you, I should have lost that weight in a week. It should have been very easy. But when your body is going through starvation, it goes after the most nutritionally dense things. It goes for your bones. It goes for your brain. It does not go for fat stores because that's the last thing it does. So, not to criticize the Marine Corps, but I think their nutrition is backwards, right? So I was set up to play hockey, and I was playing, not high level hockey, but still in very good hockey shape prior to going to boot camp. There was some discipline things there that kind of got me through to be able to graduate on time. But yeah, my body suffered a lot. I actually, throughout the course of the next 6 months, I was having to get treatment for my leg so my leg would heal properly. But, I made it out of boot camp, graduated with my platoon, went to Marine combat training, got through that, got to my MOS school, got through that. Physicality wise, boot camp wasn't tough, but starvation for 9 weeks was tough. But I think if I had lived up north, or had been 4 or 5 years younger and had some of those opportunities, I probably would not have gone in the military. It probably wouldn't have been a decision I made, but I'm happy I did it. It paid for my college. It has opened up other opportunities that have come up throughout the years.
Even after dealing with hard discipline while nursing multiple injuries, Jacob Bain still managed to grow and seek positivity during his time in service. Now he was beginning to develop a stronger sense of self-discipline than he ever did playing hockey, along with a new sense of community and camaraderie he felt amongst his small team of peers.
And I think, despite the fact that the Marines and the Navy and the Air Force and the Army and the Coast Guard and now the Space Force, we always rag on each other. You're in a very limited, you're in very limited company when it comes to that brotherhood and that fraternity.
As Jacob embraced his non-traditional path, he also undertook many jobs, as those who serve sometimes do. One day you might be cleaning toilets, the next you're studying the manual for the big red button, and what a person often begins as when they enlist can be rather different than who they are and what they do when their time is complete. And for Jacob, he took it all in stride when it came to his MOS, or military occupational specialty.
Naval messaging, which is 2542, that was one MOS. That was my primary MOS. We go to the same school as the data systems guys. It's literally the same school. And the data systems guys also got some of that training on how to do cryptographic messaging. It just wasn't their primary job. But because there was so many cross training, it was a dual MOS at the time. Um, so when I went to Delta school in 29 Palms, it was just I would train as a 20 by 42. I would get extra training, know how to set up the equipment, know how to do the basics of naval messaging, know the formatting for those messages, which changes when you get to the fleet. But then you're also learning all the other stuff, how to build or maintain a computer, how to build or maintain a server, how to build and maintain a network infrastructure. At the time, we were still using 486s, when I think the Air Force had Pentium 1s. So that was fun. Uh, Windows NT was not our friend. It was not our friend at all. Um, but yeah, that was just how the job setup was. Yeah, dual MOS was what they called it. And there were other crossovers in the Marine Corps, like you could have another job but also cross train in another job.
Discipline, brotherhood, these words are often used to describe the overall military experience. But there are some other major aspects of serving in the military that might be less common, things that you don't expect. And when you watch a movie or a television program about the military, you never really get the full scope. But just like any other teamwork and employment environment, the military comes with its own set of mundane, annoying, and unexpected challenges.
I think what became the most unexpected thing overall was the politics. And the politics of all of it made life very difficult. Um, the fraternity was great, the brotherhood was great, but not to get too deep into my experience, but I was in constant conflict with two different sets of command when I was in. And the unexpectedness of it all had to do with, am I here to do the mission or am I here to make you look good? The mission was first. So I had some issues with my left leg, and I had some issues with my knee. I needed knee surgery when I was in. And at that some point I was just like, I cannot deal with the politics anymore. I just want to get out. And I got out. But I miss it. I miss it every day. Again, I miss that camaraderie. I miss the people I had met. If I could go back and redo it, I probably would. But it definitely formed a lot of things later on that I've gleaned from and I've been able to use to be a better coworker, a better employee, a better husband, a better father.
While he didn't remain in active service, that didn't mean that his time associated with military veterans would be over. He personally understands how important it is to have a strong support system to come home to after active duty, and the stigma that goes along with the aftermath of active military service. And so, Jacob felt compelled to work directly with veterans in order to make a bigger difference in their lives.
My current job, and I've been doing it for over 15 years now, is I actually work as an authorizer in the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Veterans Benefits Administration, and we process veterans claims. And my job is to make sure that the finality of the claim is correct, the veteran is properly notified, the veteran has all their appeal rights, they're being properly paid if they were granted service connection. That's my current job. And for what it's worth, in December, when they went up to the Hill to say, well, what government agency is doing its job the right way, the only one they had praise for was where I work. We were doing all the right things. We were under intense scrutiny every day, every week, every pay period, every month, every quarter, the whole shebang. And we had been for years. If you didn't meet production, if you didn't meet quality, you would get written up. And if you did not fix it, you would be terminated. Nothing there has changed. And the metrics that we have to meet are extreme, and I love it. And I love doing my job. It's every private sector job I ever had was the same way. So some things are tough right now. There's a lot of people who are scared. But my job is to support veterans as best I can, and that's what I do. And what's cool about the side gig, the company, is that, well, my family, when it's 6 a.m. to 2:30, my normal work schedule, anything happens during that time, they have to resolve. And that's why the name is Bain Blends. It's not something else, right? There has to be buy-in there. So it's a family-run business for a reason. But yeah, I love what I do. It's rewarding. It can also be frustrating, but it's a very rewarding thing, and it allows me to continue to serve.
We all have those moments in our life that we look back on and feel a certain way about. Many of us go through life trying to find a purpose, trying to find that one thing that makes a difference. Whether it's helping someone to gain their GED, anonymously putting a dinner on the doorstep of a less fortunate family on a holiday, or even just paying for the person behind you in the drive-thru. We all have the chance to make a difference in people's lives, to make a bigger impact on the world. And Jacob certainly has had those moments of his own.
Back during the time when Agent Orange had first been started as a thing that veterans get service connected for, it was a case called Niemer, and veterans were getting compensation checks in the millions of dollars going back into the late 60s to early 70s sometimes. That was rewarding, seeing guys that were in the same era as my dad, the Forgotten War, or that was the Korean War. Well, the war that nobody wanted to acknowledge the fact that our veterans were doing what they were called to do by their government. For if it was right or if it was wrong was irrelevant, is what they were called to do. And to be able to give those guys the relief that they deserved, to right the wrong of being spit on coming off a bus or a plane, that is a very rewarding thing.
Doing the right thing is sometimes difficult, especially when it comes to being selfless in a culture that tells you to only strive to get more and more for yourself. And when it comes to being a man in our culture, the views can often be distorted. Coming up, Jacob talks about being a man in the current culture and what it means to have a beard while also navigating the murky waters of responsibility, adulthood, and being a father. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. The Glorious Beard podcast is proud to partner with Bridges for Brianna, a nonprofit working to prevent loss from mental health crises. Founded in memory of 15-year-old Brianna Dorgan, the organization connects individuals and families with the support and resources they need while helping communities talk more openly about mental health. To learn more, you can get involved by visiting bb4bpa.org, because no one should have to face this alone. Let me ask you a simple question. How long is your beard? Do you think it's longer than your friends or your family? Maybe you think you have the longest beard in town. Well, I can assure you that no matter how long your beard is, it's not the longest one that's ever been grown. Hans Langseth is a name that pops up anytime that people talk about record-breaking beards. Born in Norway in 1846, he moved to the United States and grew a glorious beard that was actually 17 feet 6 inches long. And it's considered by many to be the longest beard ever grown.
You likely haven't heard of Hans Langseth, the man with the longest beard in history, whose facial hair measured a whopping 17 feet and 6 inches when he died. In fact, his beard was so long that a schoolgirl played jump rope with it. And so you may be wondering, what's the secret to such a long beard? Born in Eidsvoll, Norway in 1846, Langseth was the fourth of 5 children. In his hometown, it was normal for men to grow out their beards during the winter and cut them when spring arrived. But his beard growing didn't stop there. Curiosity led him to wonder just how long his beard could get, and when he was 19, he entered a beard growing contest. Even though he didn't win, he ditched the razor for good and never looked back. Langseth and his brothers left Norway and immigrated to the United States in 1867, where he soon met his wife, Anne Berntsen. They married and settled down in Iowa, where they had 5 children. When Anne passed away at only 40 years old, Langseth took his children to Minnesota, where he worked as a farmer to support them. As a farmer, his beard often got in the way of his work, and his genius solution: wrapping it around a cob of corn and storing it in his coat pocket. But that wasn't the only obstacle standing in the way of his beard-growing goal. Natural beard hair stops growing around 4 to 5 feet, but to combat this, he locked and matted the dead hair together so it could keep lengthening. However, the length got to Langseth at a point, so he made the decision to cut the beard off, and halfway through stopped and regretted it, not wanting to waste the time that went into his accomplishment.
And he did learn something pretty interesting that I will likely never get to, most of you will likely never get to, is that his beard completely changed at about 5 feet. Once it got to that 5 feet mark, then it became dead or unresponsive, right? A lot of us know that if you don't drink water, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you do these things, your beard's gonna feel horrible. He said at about 5 feet, no matter what he did, his beard started to become like that always, permanently. And so what he did was, instead of cutting it off at that point, which a 5-foot beard is absurdly large, he wanted to still go for it, so he started matting the hair together almost like modern day dreadlocks.
Farming wasn't the only thing he did in his later years. He ended up entering more beard contests and activities. News quickly spread about Langseth's bizarre beard as the record became official in 1922. Around the same time, a beard group in Sacramento, California called the Whiskerinos emerged to celebrate the California Gold Rush by holding a beard contest and dressing up like the miners, mimicking their long beards. It was no surprise Langseth came in first place, leaving with a grand prize of $300, worth around $5,000 today. At this time, his beard was 14 feet long and had earned him a spot in the circus. Dubbed King Whiskers, he toured with a travelling circus to display his long beard for spectators. However, he quickly got sick of people yanking his beard all the time, which started giving him neck pain.
And he really enjoyed the fame. He actually became close with the bearded lady, all right? They called her the fat bearded lady, and she would wash his beard for him. Kind of an interesting connection there.
After growing out his beard for nearly 60 years, Hans Langseth passed away at the age of 81 from natural causes. Before he died, he asked his children to give him an open burial and to preserve his beard. As per his wishes, his son cut it off before he was buried and kept it safe in a box for about 40 years, before donating it to the Smithsonian Institute in 1967. Today, you can visit this glorious beard for yourself at the Smithsonian in the Department of Anthropology. That's where you'll discover cool things about the beard, such as the corn kernel stuck in a patch of its hair, or the way that it fades into 3 different colours, which is reflective of how he aged. While Hans Langseth kept the title of longest beard for a century, the record now belongs to Sarwan Singh, with a beard length of 8 feet and 3 inches. However, despite the record being broken, history will never forget Hans Langseth, or his absolutely glorious beard.
Welcome back. Here on the Glorious Beard podcast, there's only one topic that we'll never fail to mention, and that is, of course, the beard itself. Like many of our guests, Jacob Bain has a bit to say about beards. Having started his own men's beard care company, he's walked an unknown path of what success in that realm looks like, as well as its ups, its downs, and everything in between. Usually when a person has that kitchen sink moment, that great idea that they want to share with the world, it's because of influence, whether that be for something personal in their own lives, a health struggle, an event that shaped them, or even those that they look up to. And for Jacob Bain, it seems to have been all of those and more.
I had very early memories of my dad with a big, bushy black beard. My dad and I did not have the greatest relationship growing up, but there were times it was really good. But I remember seeing pictures when I was an infant, grabbing his beard. And it was never something that I wanted to emulate, but it was something that stuck out. He always had like a big, bushy handlebar, not styled, but a big bushy mustache for years. And he still does. But I do remember those, there's some vague early memories of that beard, as well as pictures. So that was always a thing. But yeah, like beards, Civil War beards. One of my ancestors is the guy who wrote Ben-Hur, Lew Wallace. Civil War, typical Civil War beard. Like you said, guys that wear beards during the playoffs. There was one thing that stuck out in 2004. Brad Lukowich, when they were celebrating in the locker room, they were shaving his beard off. And he goes, "Oh, it feels so good." And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I used to just have this goatee, the small goatee on my chin, whatever that's called. And never had it joined with the mustache. I wanted to grow my beard like those warriors did. Also, the Special Forces guys, the guys that would go deep country and were never in uniform. The movie Zero Dark 30 with John from The Office. Big bushy, beard from those operators. Love that. I just thought that was incredible.
This connection between beards and masculinity is something that can often be misrepresented and also carry potential problems. The association with vanity, surface-level symbols like tattoos and beards going together, and the picture that the media may try to portray of the muscle-bound hero or the villain with the beard are often shaped by cultural expectations, media, tradition, and social pressures. But at its core, masculinity, like any identity, is about how people relate to themselves and others. It's shaped by care, responsibility, resilience, curiosity, and connection. It's not a checklist or some kind of contest, and it doesn't have to be proven. There's definitely a difference between aggression and assertiveness. And Jacob, well, he proves that by how he sees himself and his role as a man with a beard in both life and society.
Well, I'm a man of faith as well. So, we don't typically want to look at masculinity as any sort of box, right? It's not about what's going on the outside. It's about what's happening in our hearts. So, not to get too deep into the religious aspect of it, but what we try to portray to our children, especially our boys, is that it's okay to be masculine. It's not okay to be a hyper-aggressive, hockey player who is the one that gets all the penalty minutes. I'm just kidding. It was easy. I couldn't resist. There's a role that has to be played. And I think that any man that plays that role the right way is going to have a really great family. It's going to have really great kids. It's going to have a wife that appreciates them for everything that they do. Likewise, if I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do as a father and a husband, um, it's going to be so much easier for them, right? I can take their burdens and I can put them on my shoulders. I can help my wife if she's having a day where she absolutely just cannot do what she needs to do that day. Like, I'm going to be there to help her and I'm her support. Likewise, she's the same thing for me. Like today, with what's going on with me today, like she's been waiting on me hand and foot, and I couldn't have survived today without it. Going and getting my medication and all these other things that I've needed today, man, my wife is my lifesaver. But, I think culture looks at masculinity or the patriarchy as a hyper negative, right? But men and women, in my perspective, the role that we have is not not to lord over the other person. I'm her 50%, she's my 50%. Together we make 100%. She's my whole, right? And the test of a true man is whether or not he's able to do that and to do it well and to sacrifice himself and put his family over himself. And you've seen some terrible dudes in the past that wear beards that are just, they don't do it right.
As time went on in life, Jacob ended up facing a problem. Like many of us, as we age, we face new challenges, whether it be family, relationships, financial issues, and even our health. As we move through life, our bodies and our situations change. And it would be no different for Jacob when it came to that moment that he decided to build a beard care brand. A moment that hit very close to home.
The process was more along the lines of what my wife needed. I had some rosacea on my face, but she was really dealing with her eczema issues on a pretty gnarly level. Hard to describe the amount of difficulty she was having with day-to-day stuff because of how bad her hands were. But when we were kind of getting out of COVID and she was running out of her steroid cream, she only maybe had a couple months left. We started going over what we could do to kind of remedy it. We had some neighbors across the street that are apothecary folks, like they believe in herbal medicine. So we went up to Georgia on vacation, to Blue Ridge, Georgia, and we go to this little apothecary that was just over the border into Tennessee, and Mary Kaysville, I think is what it's called, and hundreds of jars of different types of herbs on the wall. So I started talking to the owner and I said, well, hey, we're looking for something that will help my wife, an oil mix that could help my wife, but also help with my rosacea. But what would you recommend? So put together 2 bags, similar but different, of all these different herbs. And about 9 months later, after they were sitting on my shelf, I said, well, how am I best going to infuse these and how am I best going to use them? Tinctures aren't going to work because alcohol dries things out. She doesn't need that. So oil is what it was. So started researching infusion. How do I get the best of these herbs out of these herbs into this oil? And where do I go from there? So put them in oil, let them sit a couple of months. Started researching other oils that could go with it, came up with some things. And that's when I started buying. Like, my mix is almost the exact same thing now as it was back then. Like, I didn't change much. I think I maybe added pumpkin seed oil at the last minute before I formed the company. But what we came up with was an oil that my wife was able to put on her hands, and subsequently came up with the butter that she was able to put on her hands, and it really helped. But to go further than that, September of 23 is when we formed the company. But to go further than that, I researched a little bit more and found some better herbs, mind you, more expensive, but better herbs like wormwood and neem and golden seal, to name a few, that would make this salve that I wanted to make much better. And roughly around September, October of 23, we had that product. The beard oil came out of that, and it was a really good oil. I started growing my beard out a couple months before then. This beard oil stopped my beard from itching with just some essential oils to go along with it. And it was a great product.
As men, we can often view our beards in a variety of ways. We all have them for different purposes. Maybe it's the freedom beard that one gets once they're out of military service. Perhaps it's just giving up the will to shave. Regardless of the reason, we all look in the mirror and see ourselves and our beards in ways that often are personal to us. Our beards can define our look, give people something to recognize us by, or even just grow our confidence. And the way that we explain our beards to others can show a whole lot about how we see ourselves.
Full, wiry a little bit, graying, soft, smells good, but healthy. Because that's what's important. You know, through all of this, with every beard product, there's some beard products out there that are good. I wouldn't call them healthy. The reason why that I sell this oil is because it's a good, healthy herbal oil that you can rub on your elbows and it'll help your skin just as much as it'll help your beard. I have just as many wives buying the butters as I do the men buying the butters, you know, for their own skin. And my 75-year-old mother uses it on her arms. But yeah, that's what I would say to a blind person. And I would say, come, touch, feel, caress. And I think they would agree with my description.
Jacob Bain has done many things in his life. He's pursued a career in hockey. He proudly served the country in the military, and then those like himself afterwards. And at home, he takes great pride in his wife, family, and community. He's been a man of many lives and places. And through it all, there's one thing that he sees above all else as being his greatest achievement.
Well, I mean, besides faith in Jesus, but my kids, my wife, you know, with I wanted to be a dad from an early age, and they're the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, and I wouldn't change it for anything. Judah, my 8-year-old, he likes walking around. We go to Costco or go shopping. That kid is dressed in his little suit and wears a cowboy hat and has cards, and he walks around, and he's a little guy. He's only like 20th percentile. He's built like a tank, but he's smaller. But he runs around, and any guy with a beard, he's like, oh, my dad's got a beard oil company, and he's got a little bit of a speech impediment. It's minor now, but he goes and hands off cards, and he's a trooper, man. He's got me some sales. I've had people reach out because he goes and hands off cards.
In a world that will often rush to define what masculinity is supposed to look like, Jacob reminds us that it's not about bravado or perfection. It's about consistency, care, sacrifice, and showing up. Whether it be on the ice, in a uniform, behind a desk, or at home with your family and children, Jacob's version of manhood is rooted in doing the right thing, even when nobody's watching. Building something with his own hands for the people that he loves, while also living out the idea that being a good man is less about image and more about impact. Be sure to check out everything that he's got going on, including his beard brand, on his Instagram at Bain Blends. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Glorious Beard Podcast. You can find all things glorious by visiting our link tree in the description. And of course, a special thanks to our guest, Jacob Bain, founder of Bain Blends. Visit him online at bainblends.com. Our production director at JXB Media is Bob McCoy. Executive producers include Joseph Kay, Damian Miller, and Sabrina Dene. Our incredible production assistant is Kaylin Graff, and additional assistance was provided by Finley Winters. Today's episode was written with the incredible talents of Nikki Bedford, Neftali Kajust, and Kayla Martinez. Our story editor was Joseph K. The microphone was hot in this episode with the sweet vocal sounds of people like Michael Lair, Bob McCoy, Mary Mullins, and Tyler Woodburn. The editing bays were stuffed full of talent from the likes of Ella Zing, Christina De La Torre, Anya the Quacken, and Bob McCoy. And of course, a big debt of gratitude to our social media team that keeps our Instagram rolling. They include great writers like Nellie Moore, Andy Bean, Morgan Bialin, and the editing skills of great individuals like Natalia Toledo Rodriguez, Ariani Unagaro, and all of our great on-screen talents, and it's all led by Sabrina Dene. The Glorious Beard is proud to partner with Bridges for Brianna, a nonprofit working to prevent loss from mental health crises. Founded in memory of 15-year-old Brianna Dorgan, the organization connects individuals and families with the support and resources they need, while helping communities to talk more openly about mental health. You can learn more and get involved by visiting bb4bpa.org, because no one should have to face this alone. The Glorious Beard Podcast is a production of JXB Media, a subsidiary of Top Secret Television Productions. You can find us online at thegloriousbeard.com.